From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Sulaiman Aledo.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, an indefinite 24-hour curfew imposed in Damaturu as the military round up some suspected Boko Haram members in Yobe State. Nobel laureate Professor Wale Soyinka and the presidency trade words over President Jonathan's style of government. Former World Bank Vice President for Africa, Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili, advises Nigeria to adopt prudent management of the nation's finances in the face of declining crude oil prices. And Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta sacks his interior minister and police chief, declares all-out war on Al-Shabaab.
On business news tonight, the Naira bounces back from days of decline, rising sharply against the US dollar.
And on sports news tonight, Manchester City coach Mario Pellegrini believes his side can still catch Chelsea at the top of the English Premier League.
We begin tonight in Damaturu, the Yobe state capital in Nigeria's northeast, where the military has successfully repelled the attack by Boko Haram insurgents, but efforts are still on to ensure the town is cleared of any trace of the militants. Although the streets of Damaturu remain calm following the declaration of a 24-hour curfew, security forces and some youth volunteers are searching every part of the town to fish out suspected members of the terror group who launched the attack. According to our correspondent in Damaturu, the operation appears to be yielding some results.
Damaturu after the storm. All appears calm, albeit an uneasy one, as the residents have been forced to stay out of the streets and roads following a 24-hour curfew declared by the state government. This is to enable security operatives carry out what they term a mop-up operation after the gun battle between the military and Boko Haram terrorists that sent shockwaves across the state and throughout the country.
At the moment, troops are ensuring the protection of the entire community with the active involvement of the Nigerian Air Force. The whole invasion was put on hold and gave an opportunity to pursue them. The pursuit is still on, and we believe that apart from the casualties they suffered yesterday, a number of them will be apprehended. The kind of cooperation we want is such that as much as possible helps the military operations to keep civilians out of harm's way, and that will mean to provide information and stay off.
The Yobe state government says the imposition of the curfew would offer security operatives ample opportunity to free it from any further attack. And the operation is said to be yielding some results already, as some of the insurgents who were trapped in the town after the attack are being rounded up by the military. Residents say security operatives, in conjunction with other volunteers, have been walking around the town to arrest the militants. Some structures at the base were also said to have been torched by the sect members. The mobile police base was the first to be attacked by the insurgents as they made their way to the town on Monday.
Well, the coordinator of the National Information Center, Mr. Mike Omeri, has advised Nigerians to be extra vigilant and conscious of the goings-on in their environment. Addressing the news conference in Abuja, Mr. Omeri says prompt information from citizens to appropriate security agencies will help check the activities of terrorists. He commiserated with the survivors of the recent Kano, Maiduguri and Yobe attacks and all other Nigerians who have lost their loved ones in the various attacks by the insurgents.
And that is why you see around the world, when a country is threatened by any form of violence, you see citizens even volunteering to go and fight. And we are getting there, and we commend the citizens who have done what they did. We commiserate with those who have lost their lives, and we brand those others as heroes. Well, we have restated once again that government has not lost focus and is continuing with, facing the challenge, and that every effort is also directed at making sure that the issue that is threatening our peace is stopped in its track.
Are there going to be special security measures?
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has come down hard on the present administration, criticizing President Goodluck Jonathan on what he describes as the reign of impunity under his watch. Professor Soyinka, who spoke in Lagos, likens the president to the biblical king Nebuchadnezzar. Specifically, he frowns at the actions of the police and the Inspector General, Mr. Sulaiman Abba, especially in the incident at the National Assembly. Professor Soyinka says the recent choice of a new leader for the guard was clearly no accident, and this hitherto unknown enforcer, one Sulaiman Abba, has wasted no time in inaugurating a season of brutish power when the people's elected emissaries are disenfranchised, cast out like vagrants, and resort to scaling fences to engage in their designated functions. The people get the message. End of quote. The Nobel laureate, however, asked the president to act what he says, because leaders are judged based on their actions and not pronouncements, which he believes are often as reliable as electoral promises. While President Goodluck Jonathan's government has not taken the statements of Professor Wole Soyinka lying low, the president's special assistant on public affairs, Dr. Donyo Kupe, have described the Nobel laureate's allegations as sad and unfortunate. The presidency says it has observed that the close relationship between Professor Soyinka and Governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, has affected his usually cerebral contributions to national discourse. Dr. Kupe, in his reaction, says it is interesting that Soyinka has chosen to ignore what he termed the immoral, indefensible and unlawful attitude of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Aminu Tambuwal, after his defection. Okupe then accused Professor Soyinka of maligning the Inspector General of Police, whom he says only discharged his lawful duties. Dr. Okupe went further to say, quote, "Our eminent professor also sadly placed the ostrich as he failed to reprimand Governor Amechi, who is the national champion of impunity and official recklessness. The administration of President Goodluck Jonathan prides itself as the most liberal, keeping faith with adherence to rule of law and tolerance." End of quote. Now, a federal High Court judge assigned the case filed against the House of Representatives Speaker, Aminu Tambuwal, today withdraw from the suit. Justice E.S. Chukwu of the Abuja Federal High Court withdraw following petition filed by Mr. Tambuwal with the National Judicial Council challenging the assignment of the case to him. The suit filed before the jurist sought to compel the Speaker to vacate office following his defection from the PDP to the APC. The suit also prayed the court to allow the Deputy Speaker, who is in the majority party, to take over as the Speaker. Citing his lack of confidence in Justice Chukwu, Tambuwal appealed to the President of the Federal High Court, Ibrahim Auta, to reassign the suit to what he calls a neutral judge. Now, leaving the country to faraway London, Africa is rising, as we have all heard, but most countries on the continent, like Nigeria, are vulnerable to the external shocks of declining commodity prices unless prudent management of the nation's finances is applied. Former World Bank Vice President for Africa, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, sounded this note of caution at the annual conference of the Royal African Society in London, where she challenged Africans to be more proactive in demanding social change. Dr. Ezekwesili was speaking against the backdrop of the uneven growth pattern across Africa, where positive economic indices still see many citizens on the margins. Our London correspondent, Doris Okewa, reports.
The growth level today The annual conference of the Royal African Society for this year was a rallying point for activating citizen participation in the affairs of the continent. Delivering the keynote address, Dr. Yobe highlights the positive economic strides being made across the continent, including Nigeria, but argues that this pattern of economic growth comes with a paradox as the levels of poverty and inequality is rising side by side the said improvements. The disconnect between growth and poverty then raises the question of demand for inclusion, which seems to be lacking among the citizens.
Institutions are built by citizens. Agencies are created by the government, but agencies are not institutions. It is not until citizens take ownership of agencies and constantly make demands on agencies that they begin to transform into institutions. And yet, for many of the citizens on the continent, they couldn't care less about the agencies. They actually are of the belief that someday, some Messiah is going to just come and make everything happen well in the country. What they fail to understand is that there must be an incentive or a disincentive that would propel those who govern to make the right sets of choices that would help transform mere agencies into institutions.
Bursts of outrage over perceived government failings have been witnessed in various parts of the continent. A popular movement in Nigeria being the Bring Back Our Girls campaign for the young girls kidnapped in Chibok by the Boko Haram terrorists.
There is often, particularly in Nigeria, outbursts of rage at what the government isn't doing or is doing. And it's never then channeled into a mass movement that the government then has to take notice of.
By demanding for social justice, economic and political inclusion, experts agree is not a simple task, as many Africans contend with the more demanding challenges of survival. But in Nigeria, with the 2015 general elections round the corner, political apathy is not in anyone's interest.
I think the first thing that needs to happen is that we need awareness. We need to first be aware what the root cause of the problem is. We need to educate ourselves. We need to actually look at the statistics and the numbers and understand why things are the way they are and what we can do and what other places have done to move to a different position.
Africa is rising. But this summit has argued that it will only continue to rise for a few until a substantial amount of its citizens rise up and demand to be included, demand for change. Doris Okamwa, Channel Television News, London.
Well, in part two after the break, Mr. Musiliu Abaniko declines for Lagos State governorship under the platform of the PDP. Stay with us.